My day already is going well, and I'm happy to be here with you as well. We have a good show for you to come. Right now, we are a little more than 24 hours ago until Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th president. It is the culmination of a stunning political comeback. It was 4 years in the making, and it has been an incredible road. Watch all of this.
It is my greatest honor and privilege to have been your president. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. This is the biggest crowd they've ever had, they say, so I love them and they love me. Extraordinary honor of being elected.
Incoming White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She is here with us, and we're going to get to her in just a moment. First, let's go to Aisha Hostage, who's on Capitol Hill, to give us the latest of the land there. Hi, Aisha.
Hi there. Good morning to you guys. We have been on quite a journey with the president-elect for a while now, and we continue on that journey today and tomorrow. He's got a very busy morning. He's going to head to Arlington National Cemetery in just a little while. He got a very warm welcome back to Washington yesterday. Take a look at this. The incoming president and the incoming first lady getting a big fireworks show at his golf club in Sterling, Virginia last night. The couple was surrounded by family and friends at this star-studded event. Meanwhile, we are talking about inaugural preps indoors, you guys. Only about 600 people, I'm told, will get to see the president-elect sworn in person. That's the capacity for that Capitol Rotunda, where preparations are currently underway to build that inaugural stage. It's eating up about a quarter of that rotunda. Space is very tight. There's been some frustration about who gets to go, who gets those coveted seats. Embassies have been calling Senate offices, wondering about their diplomats. Members are wondering about their spouses. I am told only those with tickets to the presidential platform and members of Congress will be allowed in that room tomorrow. And remember, Trump has invited tech giants like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg to sit with him as well. So we'll probably see some VIPs in that room too. With so many supporters in town, Dana, the Trump team is offering a viewing party tomorrow at Capital One Arena. There's already a line outside for the victory rally today. Capacity there, just 20,000 people. I've been talking to some folks as well who came in, who had seats outside for tomorrow, and they don't know where they're going to go watch this, but they say they're not leaving. They're going to stick it out, and they're going to be here in Washington when he becomes the next president. Dana?
Yes, and as I said at the top, people are cheerful, easygoing, understand the weather changes. Nobody was mad. Everybody's super patient, so we will pack ours as well. Thanks, Aisha.
Incoming White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt leads our coverage here. Good morning to you. Nice to see you. There's a lot to talk about. I know you guys are juggling a lot of things at the last minute here. We'll see how that all works out. When we get to the moment tomorrow, which is the speech, what's he going to tell America?
You're going to hear President Trump talk about how we are entering a golden age of America and how Americans' hope can be restored in this great nation. You'll hear President Trump talk about the reality of the world that we are living in, the border invasion that has turned every state in this country into a border state. You'll hear him talk about the dire economic situation that many American households have found themselves in because of the Biden administration's policies. Then you'll hear him talk about his plan, his executive action on day one to fix these problems that have been plaguing the American people over the past 4 years. And I think after hearing his speech tomorrow, Americans are going to feel a renewed sense of hope and optimism. And you're already feeling that in this city throughout this weekend.
Yeah, you really can. I'm telling you, it is interesting. The Fox News poll says this, that Trump's win was a rejection of Biden policy at 54%. Let me ask you, when you have the executive orders that go out, how are you going to, as press secretary, communicate to the people, this is how this is going to go, this is what we're able to do immediately? How much rejection of the Biden policy can happen on day one?
A lot. And the American people should expect that President Trump is going to deliver on many of the promises that he made to them within the first 24 hours of his taking back the Oval Office. Our policy team has been working diligently on putting these orders together for him so we can immediately shut down the southern border, reinvigorate our energy industry, reverse many of the disastrous Biden administration executive orders that Joe Biden signed on day one 4 years ago, which have led to the increased cost of living and inflation in this great country. So there's a lot for us to message. It's a big responsibility. We don't want the details to be lost on the American people because every single one of these executive actions that President Trump is taking are monumental, and they are truly going to transform the way that this government here in Washington, D.C. works, how the bureaucracy works, and how it's been ripping off American taxpayers.
So here are the top priorities. Call for number 5, immigration deportation, 13%. Let me come back to that. Economy and jobs, same, 13. Inflation, high prices at 11. Make America great again and resign or quit at 9% with an even score there. On immigration and deportation, it seemed that Tom Homan made some news yesterday. He'll join us next hour about reconsidering going into Chicago this coming week. What can you add to that? Will that happen?
I will never comment on specific law enforcement operations, but what I will say is that President Trump promised the American people that he is going to launch the largest mass deportation operation in American history, and under the leadership of Kristi Noem and of CBP and ICE, I'm sure they are preparing to do just that. Because this policy has overwhelming support from the American people. There was a fascinating poll in the New York Times yesterday that showed that 83% of Americans support deporting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes in this country. And that's what President Trump and this administration will be focused on. If you broke our nation's laws to get here, and then on top of that, you come into our country, you get a free ride, and then you committed a crime, you are going to be sent home to your home country. And this is going to send a very strong message to the rest of the world that if you are an illegal immigrant who is thinking about breaking America's laws, think again, because you will be sent home.
Well, interesting because Eric Adams, met with President-elect Trump over the weekend. He's the mayor of New York. We got a problem in New York.
Sure.
But some of these mayors who want to do the right thing are dealing with sanctuary city laws in their state. Do you get a sense that there's any ability to cooperate with the federal government from somebody like an Eric Adams?
Well, yes. In fact, you've seen some rhetoric softening from some of these Democrat governors. I can speak on behalf of the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, who has said that now she realizes there's a big problem in her state, and she's, maybe willing to work with the Trump administration. And so when you see President Trump actually in power implementing these policies, I do think that these Democrat mayors and governors who their citizens are fed up. Again, I'll recite that poll. There's overwhelming support amongst the American people, Democrats and Republicans, to do the right thing. We have to be a nation of laws. We have to restore law and order in red states and in blue states alike. And President Trump will work with anybody across the aisle to do that.
2 more things here. One from me, one from Dana.
Sure.
There's a weather storm rolling in here.
There is.
It could be wind chill 5 degrees tomorrow, or it may not be. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Others have suggested it might be more than just weather to move things indoors. Can you confirm or deny that security is a consideration?
I've seen those allegations and those rumors online. They are unequivocally false. As President Trump said in his statement, the inauguration was moved indoors because he wants to protect his supporters. It is going to be frigid tomorrow. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm used to the cold, but it is going to be very, very cold. There was also a concern about law enforcement personnel, the horses, the canine dogs. There's so much that goes into protecting a president on Inauguration Day. And so President Trump made this call in the best interest of his supporters, and it's strictly due to weather.
Caroline Levitt, you're going to brief on Tuesday. I'm going to be watching. Thank you so much. We do have some breaking news. We want to get to it right now. Breaking news live in Tel Aviv. What do we know now, Trey? Do we have eyes on some of these hostages that have just been released?
Yeah, right here in Tel Aviv. You can hear the crowd erupting behind me. I'm going to have my cameraman pan to the screen here. This is local Israeli television, and there is a split screen from Gaza. If you look on the left side of this screen, it is the first image of one of these hostages about to be released from Hamas captivity. Remember, there are 3 of them who will be released today. And just to give you a sense of what it's like in this crowd here, though, there was so much anticipation. The Israelis didn't know if these women would be released alive or dead. And again, this was the first image that they were able to see, at least one of them alive. We understand that the Red Cross is right now working to get these hostages to the IDF along the Gaza border. And again, just more cheers from this crowd as they're getting the first piece of good news in 15 months. There are 3 women that are set to be released today. A woman named Romy, a woman named Daron, and a woman named Emily. 2 of them were taken from Kfar Aza, one of the small communities along the border, and one of them from the Nova Music Festival. And again, they're just seeing these images for the first time, live images from the Gaza Strip, and at least one of these hostages surrounded by fighters from Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades. It's just a disconnect that these civilians here have dealt with following each and every day of this war. And again, they have been waiting for this good news. Just to give you a little bit of information about what's going to happen next. These hostages are being transferred from Hamas's Al-Qassam brigade. This is the armed military wing of Hamas. They will go to the Red Cross and then meet Israeli soldiers along the Gaza border. At which point we are told by an Israeli official they will be transferred to a reception area. And we got just another small piece of information that's so important in this story. The mothers of these hostages are going to be permitted to meet them at this reception point. They will be able to be reunited there. They'll be evaluated by a team of psychologists and doctors, and they'll be flown then to a hospital here in central Israel. But again, the latest information that we have, the Israeli people just now as we are speaking are seeing the first images of these hostages being transferred to the Red Cross inside Gaza. They'll move on. And again, I'm just going to step out of the frame here so you can see these images from Gaza. Those green headbands, those are members of Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades. And again, these images of this car right here, that is one of the hostages being released. It is just a sense of relief for the Israeli people here in Tel Aviv as they get these first images out of Gaza and wait for any more information about their fellow country women. Guys?
Trey Yanks, okay, so a couple of things. One, it does look very chaotic and almost dangerous for these hostages as they try to get out, as they're clamoring around the cars. It's not very orderly. 2, one of my earliest political memories is of the hostages being released, the Americans being released from Tehran in Ronald Reagan's inauguration. And these young women and the other hostages have been held underground by Gaza for longer than the Americans were in Tehran. We don't know what they've gone through. We will all be there to try to help them. Are these the only hostages we expect in this first phase of the ceasefire, or are there more to come?
So the first phase of the ceasefire will last for 42 days. In total, 33 hostages will be released from Hamas captivity during this time. We don't know how many of them are alive and how many are dead, but this is the current agreement. They will be exchanged for Palestinian prisoners. And I want to just read you an update that we just got in from the IDF. The Red Cross has communicated that 3 Israeli hostages were transferred to them, and they are on their way toward the IDF inside the Gaza Strip. They are all alive. Just a remarkable moment, just one day ahead of the inauguration. And as you talked about, there is such political significance here. President-elect Trump warned Hamas that there would be hell to pay if these hostages were not released and if there was not a deal. Among the group of 33 hostages set to be released in this first phase of the ceasefire agreement, we understand 2 American citizens are on that list. It cannot be overstated how much the Israeli people have been waiting for this moment. They are just really relieved is the only way to describe the feeling here in Tel Aviv tonight. So many people just waiting to see this first day go smoothly, and then hopefully the weekend that follows, more will come out of Gaza.
Trey, the negotiations here are fraught with, I would argue, delicacy. You know, phase 1 is expected to last 6 weeks. And on the 16th day of phase 1, they'll start negotiations for phase 2. I mean, this could go sideways at any point. It's also been reported that in Israel, they believe most of the hostages are still alive. Does that comport with the information you have? And if so, how many roughly do we believe are still being held alive?
It's a great question, and to give you a sense of just how delicate this ceasefire is, I'll take you to this morning. People woke up across Israel expecting a ceasefire to be in place at 8:30 a.m. local time. Hamas hadn't handed over the list of hostages that are currently being transferred to the Red Cross right now and to the IDF. And so the Israelis came out with their top military spokesman, Daniel Hagari, and announced they were resuming airstrikes across the Gaza Strip. And we saw these images, plumes of smoke coming from Gaza as the Israelis resumed their campaign, putting that last-minute pressure on Hamas. Later, they released the list, and things moved forward. But this is an incredibly delicate agreement. In terms of the number of people alive out of the 33 we expected to be released during the first phase of this 6-week phase 1, we understand anywhere from 21 to 26 are believed to be alive. Even the Israelis don't know because Hamas is giving them not much information to work with. Just today, they found out that these 3 hostages are alive. And so as we look forward, the 6 weeks ahead are going to be filled with anticipation and anxiety for the Israeli people. But again, tonight, a sense of relief. 3 Israeli hostages going to be reunited with their loved ones in a matter of minutes here in the Middle East.
Trey, may I ask you about then the Palestinians who are being held by Israel for crimes that were going to be released? When does that happen?
That's going to happen the minute that these Israeli hostages cross the border from Gaza. And just to give you a breakdown of what we're looking at here, and the numbers can get a bit confusing, but amid the phase 1 of this agreement, you will see 33 hostages released from Gaza. The first 9 hostages, we understand, according to a senior Hamas official who spoke with Fox News about the negotiations that have been ongoing in Doha, they'll be exchanged for 110 Palestinian prisoners that currently have life sentences. And I took a look at this list. We're talking about people convicted of murder and terrorism, people who planned suicide bombings, and people who conducted shooting attacks in the West Bank are going to be released for these civilians who were dragged from their homes on the morning of October 7th, and in one case dragged from a music festival. And the disconnect here is striking because, again, when you look at the release, you are seeing 3 Israeli civilians released from Gaza today. The prisoners that are being released just today from Israeli prisons are convicted murderers and people who planned suicide bombings. And that is part of the reason that this deal has been met with a lot of frustration in the Israeli public, because they understand what this means. They have dealt with this before. When we go back to 2011, Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier who was released from Gaza in exchange for 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, they remember one of those prisoners was Yahya Sinwar, one of the masterminds behind the October 7th massacre. We're just getting some more information now as we speak here. My producer handing this to me. We understand the hostages are in good condition. And again, they are on their way to the IDF meeting point where they'll be reunited with their mothers along the border. And again, you just hear these cheers in the crowd in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, where demonstrators have been coming out every single week demanding an agreement. The deal on the table that is being implemented as we speak is very similar to the deal that was on the table last May. The difference here, President-elect Trump sent his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, to Doha, pushed this deal across the line. And we will see not only these hostages released, but if the deal moves forward, 33 of them in phase 1, and if phase 2 moves forward, the rest of the hostages that were held by Hamas for the past 470 days. Bill, Dana.
Remarkable stuff. Trey, your producer Yonat says the 3 hostages are now in the hands of the Red Cross. They've been seen walking and they are alive. The